And we are live. Good morning, everyone. This is the fourth episode of Art My Medicine. And today I have a pleasure chatting to one of my favorites people. And it's John. John, who is an author and a very creative soul and a nature lover. And I will allow you, John, to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me on this morning. I'm an author, but an author that never knew I would ever be an author. So that's been a big surprise to me. And nature lover, absolutely. I made my career out of working with trees. Trees have been an enormous help to me throughout my life. In lots and lots of different ways, and I managed to make my job working with them. So I feel very lucky.
Yeah, it is lucky. Doing something that you love is the best, really. And we strive for it, don't we, to do something that we love. But you said that you never thought you will be an author. Tell us why it's so.
Well, I'm dyslexic. And I've always had an inherent fear of words. It was drilled into me at school. School was a very confusing time for me indeed, because I felt bright, I felt inquisitive, I didn't feel unintelligent before I went to school. But the day I stepped through that gate, they told me that I was lazy. They told me that I was stupid. And that was very confusing, but it instilled this fear of books and literature and writing and reading, because I struggled with it. I was slow. I was a slow reader. My brain processes things in a different way to a lot of people. It's not just reading and writing. I see the world perhaps in a slightly different way. Perhaps people see it in lots of different ways, but I see it in my way. And I think one of those things is that I kind of need to know the whole picture. It's no good saying to me, oh, this is a formula for working this answer out so you can pass an exam. That's no good to me. I need to know why. I need to know the ins and outs of it and the whole thing. And so school was a very difficult place. And so I never read a book. I've never read a book cover to cover. I could never see the joy in reading a book for pleasure. Why would anyone want to do that? For me,
myself.
I know. It sounds crazy, but that's what I've had for 50 years. I once started reading a book about Robin Hood, and the pictures looked amazing. I loved the swinging from tree to tree and the bows and arrows and all that sort of thing, but I didn't get past page 2 because it was just such a chore, because I process the words slowly, and the title of my book is The Void Between Words, because I used to see the white spaces in between the words.
Which is quite common for people with dyslexia, isn't it?
Is it? Right. Yeah. I know that things get muddled up and often things are back to front and the spacings are very, very strange. So I would imagine it is common. But yeah, at the time, it just seemed like a kind of escape route for me to go into the voids and escape having to read this horrendous thing, whatever it was.
Wow. Yeah, the title of your book was the first aspect that attracted my attention, because the title is just brilliant. Not only that the void reminds me, and it's associated with, the kind of depression in my case, and words. I love words. So the void between words, it was something that really I associated with a beauty in pure form. And then I started to read about you and the book, and I was like, wow, I just need to read it. And the book is more like memoir, isn't it? You describe your childhood and the process, how you got where you are. But it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because it's a memoir, but it includes a memoir of writing the book. It's a bit a complex idea there. Could you explain it how it is, because I know that I can't explain it. I know what I mean, but I can't explain it properly.
You need my brain. You need my brain to understand the process, and that is, I never, with anything in my life, I never start at the beginning and end at the end. Quite often I'll start at the end and then go back to the beginning. So what happened was that this fear of words just made me back away from literature, as I said, and reading and writing. And so to be waking up in the early hours of the morning with this idea that I could write a book was a pretty scary thing. I didn't understand it, but I had these words and I had these kind of poetic sentences coming into my mind, and of course I chose to ignore them because I was thinking that's crazy. That's crazy business. Don't get involved with that. But after a few times it happened, and I'd get up and make a cup of tea, 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I started to think, well, actually, why don't I just write them down? And so it's there, because sometimes in the morning I couldn't remember. I knew I'd had a brilliant thought, but I couldn't remember what it was. So I started to write them down, and then I just thought, this is turning into something. But it wasn't, it wasn't my memoir. It wasn't a non-fiction book. It was a novel. It was a book of fiction. It was about a romance between a couple. Where that came from, I don't know. But it was happening, and there was nothing I can do about it. And the complete shock was that I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the process of bringing those words out of my brain and putting them down. Now, I didn't put them down on paper because that's where my biggest fear is. And the advent of computers helped me massively, because I put them onto my computer, and I find that a much easier process. Brain to pen and paper for me is a non-starter, but brain to computer just seems to work. And if I skip forward, to now and having written a book, I literally can type thousands of words in one go, and I love the process. So it's been an absolute revelation. And so the original book was the novel, the love story between Peter and Charlotte. And it's a life struggle. They've both got their voids, and they're ultimately looking for love, but they've got their issues as they go along. And that's the book, and that's the first book I wrote. Now, when I found my incredible editor, she's a wonderful woman. She believed in me, which was quite a big ask, but she encouraged me to formulate it into a proper book. And while that was happening with her, then I was inspired to write the memoir, The Void Between Words. And so it happened off the back of it, in a way.
Yeah, which is kind of a good aspect, because you really built attention now. I am like impatient to get the swing, because this is the title, isn't it, of the novel, and read it. So when the swing is coming into the market?
Well, it's all part of the plan, to build excitement. To be honest, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth drafts were okay. I think, like many authors, you put down your words, and then it needs a degree of crafting, and it's in that sort of final draft now. So I'm hoping early New Year 2022.
Oh,
so
wow!
If I can that will be a year anniversary to when the Void came out. So.
Oh, I just hope that it will come early, so it will be, because I always keep a kind of note of what books I read during the particular year. And I really cherish always the very first book on my list for particular year. So I really hope that The Swing will be one of my first in 2022.
Oh, you've put the pressure on now. Then I might have to. I want to be that first book.
Yeah, and we have a comment from Karen. And by the way, hello everyone. Lovely that you could tune in and listen to our chat, because John is an incredible person. But Karen mentioned that she loves the aspect that your muse woke you up and visited you each time.
Indeed. I didn't foresee it at all. It was there, and I actually wonder whether I had that in me right from being a child. I always had that. I'm a creative. I come from a family of creatives, so my mum's an artist, and although I don't, unlike you, I'm not really a painter. I'm not really a drawer. I needed another avenue. But of course, that fear of words meant that wasn't the avenue. But actually, I think it probably was.
I think that this what has happened there in your story is very similar to what happened to my story. Because you were conditioned to believe that you are not good enough, that you are not worthy, that you are lazy, whatever adjectives were used against you, you were suppressing your creative urges, although they may have been there throughout your life, but you were suppressing it because you were made to believe that you are not this, what you feel inside you might be. And the same happened in my life, that because I wasn't allowed into art school, I said, well, I'm not good enough. So I suppressed and I stopped doing any creativity and was suppressing. And at some point, in my case, due to the horrendous mental health breakdown, this reemerged. And now I can't stop. I'm pouring out crazy, but like you. And I find it in many creative souls that they have this moment at night about 2/3 o'clock when they may wake up and have a spark in their creativity or an idea. So there is a kind of magic, I would say in creative life, don't you think?
I do. I totally agree. I think that that. I think it's your subconscious brain. I think that's why it happens at that time in the morning. It's possibly akin to dreaming or whatever. But I think you're really tapping into your subconscious brain, which it's the real you. There's no pretense there. There's no gloss. There's no shop front. It's you laid bare. And the fact that those things are coming to you at that time, I think means that it's genuinely you. And I think that like all artists, that we kind of need that angst within us as well to be creative. It's an irony in a way. Do you feel this?
Yeah, I feel it so much because the mental health troubles and struggles I experienced throughout my life, I gave it a voice via my art. So the very negative emotions and states of mind, they became the art pieces that I created. So the negative and pain and struggle was the source of my creativity and healing, because bringing it out from here, evicting it and putting it and storing it on the paper or canvas, I found that not only I give it a form and can process it, but also kind of, relieve the crowd there, because, my brain is very crowded. And it's amazing. And there is a question from Karen. First of all, she's saying, could I have your pillow? It's obviously full of creative magic.
Yeah, I might have to wash it.
Well, who knows? Maybe you will wash off the magic then. And she's also asking
my merch, the pillow. The voice pillow.
And she's also asking, was writing your autobiography somehow cathartic?
totally, totally and utterly. Yes, yes. I've been confused for many years. So as you said, you know, the outpouring of that creativity for me was a great release, and ultimately it was the freedom. It was the freedom that I'd been looking for all my life. I'd been
Yeah.
caught up, you know, my mental health. Um, it's, you know, associated with dyslexia. So it's not just the dyslexia that's the problem. And actually my problem was never with dyslexia. I was quite comfortable with it, really. It was, my problem was with society's perception that I had to conform to society's rules and, you know, do what everybody else was doing. So that then instilled very low self-esteem when I was a child, low confidence. I didn't feel I was worthy of anything, really. And, you know, that then stays with you into adulthood.
Yeah.
But I always felt like there was a freedom. I was searching for that freedom. I didn't quite know what it was. I mean, I did find it strangely in nature, as we mentioned at the beginning. You know, nature helped me massively, in trees, and they were a great conduit to me trying to understand things, and a great energy. You know, I can access this natural energy from trees. In fact, anyone can do it. I know that anyone can do it. So, you know, I'd like to talk about that further if you want to. But freedom, that outpouring was just the best thing that could have ever have happened to me.
Yeah, and many creatives mention that the creativity is the channel that provides them with liberation from whatever struggle or whatever intense emotions, because I think it's about intense emotions that we creatives do experience, and because they are so intense, we feel them probably a bit more than others may, and we need to find the channel through which we just express it, because it's too intense to keep it there, and too painful, and too, you know, it's like we are just little body. We can't contain all the sensitivity that we feel. So creative outlet is one of the ways to let it out and be in peace in some way. There is a comment from Karen saying, there are far more sad and troubled poems than happy ones because we don't analyze happiness. Would you agree with that?
I don't think we celebrate happiness. You know, I think, you know, but perhaps some of the most creative work does come from sadness, because you're delving deep into your mind and into your soul. And, you know, you just look at all the songs, the hit songs, they're all about love and loss, and, you know, and news, you know, newsworthy. I found it quite interesting promoting the book, is that, you know, people don't want to know a good news story. When do you ever put the news on and it's, you know, someone's joyous about this, or this is a happy, never. It's always the bad news stuff. You know, we seem to celebrate the bad news, and I think, you know, we should celebrate good news, and we should celebrate who we are. And you know, and I think everyone's got something to celebrate about themselves, and
Yeah.
you know, let's champion that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is another aspect why I was so drawn to your book, because it is a success story. It is an evidence that you can do whatever you want to do. Really, you just need to believe in it. You just need to find that outlet in you and believe that this is the way. And yeah, and I agree with you. We don't celebrate enough success stories, which is so sad. But yeah, this is probably a topic for another huge conversation. Adam is saying, yeah.
Well, one of the main things that I wanted to get across in the book was that, yes, anything is possible, because I've experienced that. I've experienced feeling like that I wasn't worthy of producing anything or contributing anything to life, really, that was valuable. But then, unfortunately, it took me years to realize that, yes, I was worthy and I was capable. And I think there's another irony here, and that is that I think within us all there's that little seed, that tiny little seed that you can get hold of, and you can nurture it and grow it so that you can do anything. But I don't think it's always available to us. I think it's really difficult to find, and quite often it's most easily accessed when you're at that low ebb. So you almost have to go to that low point where you think that there's no way out, there's no options, there's no direction, and then you kind of find it. You find that fighting spirit. I hope people find it, because I'm sure it's there, and for me it was there. And you have to then, just believe in that and believe in yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Adam is in a question. Dorota, have you had much caffeine? Because I have never seen you enjoying yourself as much as you are right now. So I'm so proud of you. No, Adam, it's just a simple ingredient to happiness that I'm chatting to one of my favorite people. And Karen is asked, oh, that's a good question. What would success with your book look like? High sales or one life touched and changed?
Oh, one life touched and changed. Yeah, I've never been driven by money. Money doesn't interest me really. That's not my motivation. I mean, for people to access the book and feel that they may relate to it in some way, it's not just for dyslexics. It's for anybody. It's for anybody, whether you're suffering from mental health issues, or you're at a low point, or you've reached a success of your own. I think the book is for everyone. But yeah, if I could help someone, I was going to say save someone, but I don't know if I could save anyone really. But if I could help someone not go through what I went through, I would be delighted. That's that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that your book is really. They say that your story might be a survival guide to someone who is going through a similar path, and I couldn't agree more with that, because reading your book, I had this massive. How to say? I was amazed how many times you had to really start from the scratch again, from square one. Your resilience really flowers in the book, showing that you went through so many turns and so many, like, starting from the beginning, and you survived and you flourished and you became better, in sense of your growth, your self-growth. What kept you what helped you to keep being resilient?
Well, I think that one of the gifts of dyslexia, and those associated mental health issues, is that you develop strategies to deal with them. And you don't know it at the time, but with dyslexia, we're great cover-uppers. What's the word I'm looking for? We try and disguise the fact that we're dyslexic, because we don't want to stand out. We don't want to look like we're different to anyone else. And so, some people are great auditors. They use their mouth and they talk their way out of situations. Or people are great artists, or people become entrepreneurs, and they disguise it, and we all do it. So it equips you with for coping strategies, and I think once you've experienced a coping strategy of some sort, then you know that you could apply that to other things. And so that's one of those values. That's one of those things that I think great. I wouldn't wish my life on anyone, but actually I'm very grateful for it, bizarrely. because it did equip me with that inner strength. And I've always known that whatever happens, I'll make it work.
Wow.
And I do tend to jump in it and make it work.
Oh. Yeah, it's amazing. I really recommend for everyone who struggles reading your book, because this book is really affirmation that you can get through difficult paths. There is a passage from your book that I would like to read, if you don't mind. What was a helpless case like me ever going to do with his life? I felt pretty useless, had nothing to offer the world. Life was a struggle and I just couldn't see a light at the end of it. Without a purpose in life, I was irrelevant and dispensable. I assume that you were very low at this point. And this is what you are talking about, the link between dyslexia and mental health, that you had those moments in your life when you really, really reached the bottom and couldn't see any purpose. So how did you overcome those low moments?
I think those low moments were when I felt that I had no options. I felt that I'd really reached the end of the road, and that's not a good place for anybody to be in at all. But I think for me, I started to realize that I had responsibility, and the responsibility was to myself. And it's no good blaming other people, and you've got to take yourself by the scruff of the neck almost and say, I do have that responsibility for me, and in very small ways you can start to create options. And I believe that everyone has the potential to create those options. And that there can be really small little steps to get you up the next rung of the ladder, because one rung of the ladder at a time eventually will get you out of that hole, out of that void. And I think and it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to do. It's and this isn't a flippant thing to say either. Saying that everyone can just get out and it's easy, because it's not. But I think if you see that you have the capability to change it, and just celebrate who you are. You might feel different, you might feel worthless, but just celebrate who you are, because actually, you being you've got so much to offer the world. Because individuality, to me, is one of the best things about the world. I hate this, the sheep, and that everyone follows the masses, and we all conform. No, I think the individuality is where the power is. So just believe.
Yeah, indeed. I think that without individuals who are perceived as different, this world would be a very sad place to be, and very boring. Individuals who have the charisma and different approaches bring the hope to our existence, really, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And you obviously, you've gone through similar thing as well. How have you gone about that?
Yeah, well, there is a good comment in our comments saying that this is the spiritual awakening of a warrior, touching your truth, and it's the rising phoenix. She is burnt to ashes first. Exactly. I think, and I always say to whoever asks me, that I think, although I wouldn't want to be in that void again, in that deep void of depression and suicidal thoughts and attempts, I think that I had to go through it for some reason. I had to somehow fall into pieces or burn into ashes to reassemble myself, to a better version, to a version who cherished myself, loved myself, my creativity, and saw a purpose in it, rather than just being a hobby, that I have something to say, I have message to send. And I think that without this massive breakdown, it wouldn't have happened, because I will not have this drive to find that seed that you mentioned, that I could, cherish and nurture to grow. There is something in the breaking point that give us that moment of either that's it, or you will hold on to the tiniest strand of spark that appears, and you will use it like a ladder to come out of it.
I think it's interesting you should say that. And really, with my heart and soul really in nature, I see these, nature has patterns. It's not just a straight line. You only have to look at the weather to see high pressure, low pressure, all those bits in between. Things are constantly moving. And that's the same. It's the same with life. It's the same with our energy, our soul, is that, there are high points and there are low points. And if you accept that in your life, it kind of makes things easier, because you don't look at the low points as being a bad thing. The low points are actually quite a good time, I think. Not a good time, but they're not a bad time, because you can go up from there, and that's good. So, just follow nature's pattern.
Yeah, it's like a bouncing surface, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And nature goes through exactly the same patterns. It's like forest fires, for example. Recently in the news there's been some horrific forest fires, and that's not a nice thing, to lose your home and your life because of a forest fire. But actually, forest fires have been happening for millions and millions of years, because it's nature's way of rebirth, in a way. You have this total devastation, and then you get the green shoots starting to come back, and often the regrowth is so much healthier and so much more vibrant. And I think we can relate to that as
indeed.
We're animals. We're only animals in the same ecosystem as everything else. And it's easy to detach.
Indeed. So nature is itself a phoenix. So nature is itself a phoenix, arising from those ashes. Indeed, yeah. And there is a question asking, what part would you say hope has helped in your recovery, and how can a hopeless person build hope?
That's a great question. I think that there's always hope. There's always hope for anyone, because you are worthy, and if you know that that you are worthy of having a life and contributing to life, then there's hope. And actually, what you can contribute is huge, to the people around you, to your own life, to your family. Hope is I think it's in us all, actually. Hope's in us all.
Yeah, indeed. And you mentioned, I think that the hope could be found in this, what you said already, perceiving yourself as part of nature, and observing the nature, and seeing that, if there is a very strong winter and everything is so bare and so, sad, and then that the spring comes, right, and it brings hope. Yes, everything will regrow and blossom again. And I think the nature is part of seeking that hope, because it is the pattern, that there is a cycle telling us, yes, something needs to die, in quotation mark, to be reborn again. And I think that in any low point, to find the hope is, yes, there is part of me perhaps dying, in quotation marks again, but this is the ashes I will use to grow something better.
you've answered the question so much better than I did. Yeah, I agree. If it was a constant spring time, then it'd be difficult to have hope. And so we have to have the winter. You have to have the winter to then have the spring, and that's that ebb and flow of nature.
Yeah, yeah, and it's with the nature we have patterns in our lives and cycles, and certainly when the mental health is ill, I see myself following certain cycle, and I almost can predict that after certain time of spring, summer, there will be autumn and winter when I will have a relapse and will have this bottom void. I will stay there for a moment, but I started to perceive it differently. I start to perceive it as a kind of hibernation state, that I need to withdraw myself a bit, be more into myself, think things through, and then slowly, awake and start building from there. And it's a lot about perception, isn't it? But also there is an aspect to our friendship, if I can call it that, that we both love trees. And trees have huge significance for me, but also for you. And there was a particular tree that was significant in your story, isn't it? Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, there have actually been two quite significant trees. One, when I was a young boy, it was just a place I used to go. It just felt like a safe place. I had an affinity with it, not that I knew it at the time, but it was like a little den. I'd climb up in there. I felt safe in amongst the branches. I could kind of look down on the world and see people busying around, and foxes and rabbits and things and birds, and it was just a place that enabled me to access the energy that I've talked about before. The energy in the wind, the breathing that air, looking at the minute detail of a leaf and even an insect crawling on the leaf. There's so many different scales there. But I did a lot of thinking in that tree, and there were times when I did feel like jumping out, but the tree held me back. The tree kept me back. It sort of said, don't do it because it's going to be okay. And at the time that was just a physical thing. I literally thought about going, and I didn't. And the tree, it just sort of swayed back, and it pushed me back in against the solid trunk. And I felt stable, and I kind of knew I'd made that decision. Later on in life, I experienced another tree, which was quite incredible, and I've always felt this incredible energy amongst trees anyway. So it's not as if I had this huge gap where I never had contact with trees again. But I was walking one day, and I was walking through the woods, and I actually came out of the woods, but then was drawn back into the woodland edge, and there was something that was just pulling me in there. And it was at a time when I was, I had those things going on in my head. I didn't quite know which direction I was going in. I wasn't in a particularly good place, and I was thinking about where to forge ahead. And I was drawn to this one particular tree, but it had almost like a face on it. And I see faces in all sorts of things. I see faces in my scrunched up clothes on the floor sometimes, but quite often in wood grain and tree trunks and things. These faces, but this particular tree had this really wonky, quite ugly face, really. But it seemed to be talking to me, and of course it wasn't words and things. It was just like a presence, and I stood there, and I just was transfixed by it, and my feet fell welded to the ground, like I just couldn't move. And I, obviously knowing a lot about trees as I do, working with them, I could tell that it was almost dead. Its branches were its canopy was very dead. There were just a few leaves here and there. It's very, very, very last chance of life. It didn't have long to live. But I felt like it transferred an energy. It was just like this wind came through me, and it kind of entered my mouth and filled my body, and then I felt my blood coming up through my feet. I mean, it's you know, I've always been a bit of a crank. People think I'm a bit of a crank because I talk about this, but actually it was very real for me. And this energy just filled me. And that tree died. That tree died, and it was very natural. There was nothing wrong with it. It was just old age. It was probably about 300 years old, I think. So I think all that wisdom and everything that tree seen over those years, what an amazing gift. So it sounds a bit strange, but for me, it was very real, and it gave me this energy. And I kind of walked away, and I just said to myself, everything's going to be okay. I didn't know I didn't have any answers particularly. I didn't think, oh yes, great, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I just felt everything was going to be okay. And so I have a very great respect for trees. Thank you, trees.
Yes. I believe they have souls, and I was cheeky enough to put in my will. Although it's still very controversial, but I asked my lawyer to put it in the will because I don't want anybody to, not respect my wishes. I want to turn into a tree after my death. So I want to be cremated and my ashes to be used as the feeding aspect of the tree, which is nowadays possible. You have those urns that you can put ashes of the person treated and or a tree. So yeah, I really want to be a tree, and I have now a very significant tree. My dad passed in first lockdown due to cancer, and I didn't have chances to say goodbye. And now I have a tree in a local park that is named after him, and I go there and just and the tree, that was chosen. I had no participation in choosing which tree. I couldn't have a say, but the gentleman who chose the tree for me, from the description of my dad and his life and his charisma, chose an oak tree that is the trunk divides in two big trunks and the branches spring around, and at the bottom of the trunk there is like a seat there. The trunk bulged into the cushion, so to say. So even if it's extremely wet, I have somewhere to sit and cuddle that trunk and think about my dad. Yeah, it's amazing, and yeah, I love that tree so much.
That's a wonderful story, because that's going to be there for a long time, hopefully, in his name. And, maybe you will become part of that ground as well with your wishes.
Yeah, I hope. And it's great that, this became a place now where it's a symbolic place for me where I can access his spirits or whatever, is there in the atmosphere, the kind of energy of him, because he was a tree lover. Whatever I love in nature and what beauty I see in nature, it was his doing. He taught me how to love nature. So my childhood was spent in woods, and I still remember the smell of the morning when you enter the forest or woods at the very early stage when the sun is rising. It's just amazing.
Oh, I so get that. It's a spiritual contact, isn't it, for sure? I think it's interesting you said that he introduced you to that. My grandfather introduced me to trees and nature, and I wonder if you sort of need that, someone to kind of open the door for you. Although I think it's very natural. I think it might be difficult for some people to access trees and nature because they haven't been shown, and I'd love for people to be able to walk into the woods and feel that amazing feeling, and know that the trees want to give us their energy. That's the most amazing thing. All that energy is coming. They're the most grounded living things on the planet. They're anchored deep into the ground, and all that energy running through the roots and up into the canopies and their leaves and giving us oxygen. There's so much more to give, and they want to give it to us. So that's we've got to be thankful that someone opened that door for us, and I'd like to think that will be available to anyone. I'm just thinking though, what tree you might want to become when you go. I was thinking you might be a rowan, perhaps, with your red, has the red berries.
Yeah, well, we will see. Yeah, it would be probably left to whoever is executing my will to decide, but I hope that they will know me enough to know what I would like to be.
Fantastic. Oh, well, is that available for people to do then, like you did for your father? I mean, can you plant a tree and have it named after someone? Is that, how do you do that?
Well, I was fortunate to come across an artist that was announced the project of local park, 100 of trees being named by ordinary people. This is what he wanted. He didn't want celebrities. He wanted just ordinary good people who are worth, having the name attached tree. And it was spooky, and I think all those things are spooky because I usually don't read emails like that because I'm bombarded with many. I don't know why on this day I opened the email and I just couldn't help but say, oh my God, this is that speaking to me. He wants it. He wants me to nominate him, and I did, but I was very worried that I may not be selected because there was still very fresh grief, and I was afraid that they will disqualify me on those grounds. But no, they didn't. They loved the story of my dad, and at some point there will be a book with all those stories. The project is called Lessons Abbey Hundreds. And yeah, there are 100 trees named after ordinary people, and the book will contain all those stories of why they have been nominated. And I perceived it as an amazing story, and not only from the aspect that I could do something that would really, really be a tribute to my dad, but also for the aspect that, oh my God, this park, these woods attached to the park will be really cherished and looked after by those people who, nominated names of their beloved ones to be there. So, from the preservation aspect of it, I was thinking, what a great idea, because you are then inflicting on people this need to look after nature.
Yes, so it won't become neglected at all. Because those people have a vested interest. That's brilliant. Wonderful.
Yeah, and beautiful project.
And your dad, what was your dad's name? What's his tree called?
My dad's name was Jan Skveres.
Ah, okay. Wonderful. And he's an oak. He's an oak.
Yes, he is, and he loved oak trees. So there is a lot of kind of magic that happened there, this brings me into an initiative that I started with my podcast. That because Mental Health Warriors platform is run through donations, we love people donating to our cause, and if anybody feels like donating, there is a banner at the bottom of the screen with the information how to donate. However, for every guest that I have on my podcast, and I choose them very carefully because I need to feel their energy. So your energy is so magnificent and felt by me that I actually created 2 artworks with you in my mind. And that artwork, you have priority to purchase it, and 20% of sales will be donated to Mental Health Warrior. Or people can also order prints if they wish. So would you like to see them?
I'd love to. Yeah. Wow. That's thrilling. Yeah. Get them out.
So the first one is when I was thinking about you in those 3 branches branches, contemplating your thoughts and being held by the tree. It really stayed with me. So I don't know how visible it is, but it has lovely texture, and the leaves are made with the technique called neurographic art, that's associated with mindful drawing. So I was really putting a lot of energy there, and there is a little figure held by the tree.
Oh, that's incredible. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and the second one, is done on handmade paper.
Okay.
That when I found and purchased, I was thinking, oh my God, this has a significance, you know. And I painted a tree in a kind of early stages of autumn, because this is the period when trees really speak through their color and energy there. And
yes.
This is the second one.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no,
I believe
really...
that art in any form, yeah.
Okay, so what do I do?
You go
Yes.
Yeah, well, I will send you a digital copy for you via email as soon as we finish, and yeah, we will touch base after the program to find out where should I send them if you wish to purchase. But yeah, this is something that I do because I realize that art is full of magic, and art itself is magic, and there is a belief that if you create an creative outcome with someone in your mind, so you do it for them rather than just painting whatever you want, you pour some energy into painting and a bit of your soul, and this touches that other soul, and there is a connection. Because I think that, like trees, we are connected, aren't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that positive energy when you're thinking about other people, and people you're close to in your life, you have that special connection, and it's so important for all our health to keep in touch. Particularly what we've gone through over the last 18 months, to be there for each other. And my family have been incredible, really. They we started doing Zoom quizzes. My mum had this idea of doing a quiz, and my sister and her family and me and my boys, we all joined in the quiz. And although we were quite far apart geographically, we felt that we were coming into each other's homes at least once a week, and it was just really good. I mean, we had a bit of fun with it, but actually we were talking, and we were just we were being supportive through that action.
Yeah, definitely. Karen says that we have a root pattern that connects us like trees. Yeah, well, I think that our brain, doesn't it? That the picture of those little, grooves in our grey matter, it's a great representation of root, isn't it?
Absolutely. If you look at the brain, it looks just like a tree canopy. It's all those neurological connections, and it's energy. It's without that energy, our brain isn't functioning, and it's exactly the same for trees and nature. And like I said, we are an intrinsic part of the whole thing. So I think we're not detached. We're not detached from nature at all. And unfortunately, I think sometimes society now takes us away from nature. Although we're coming back to it these days with Save the Planet, doing global warming, those sort of things, which are absolutely essential. But the reason we're having to think about it is that we've moved away from it. we've been destructing the planet, we've been destructing the nature, and that's not good for us as humans. We need to respect it, but society has puts those pressures on us. Society is about earning money and having a bigger house and a bigger car, and losing sight sometimes of the really important things.
Yeah. There is also an aspect that I wanted to touch, because you have an activity that you really mastered, and you even wrote a book about it recently that is already on the market, that helped you to access some kind of brain space during the difficult times, which is juggling, isn't it?
It is. Just when you thought there was nothing else to talk about, we throw juggling into one of the incredible things that I found about going into the void between words was that really what I was doing was accessing my subconscious brain, and I was able to start manipulating my brain in a way. I learned over a long period of time that I could actually talk to myself through my subconscious. And there are people that probably know a lot more. I'm probably describing this in a very poor way because I can only tell you what I experience. But for me, it almost like a hypnosis, like a self-hypnosis. So I am able to go into my subconscious, and I've spent a life being anxious, not being confident, worrying, like this sort of thing, talking to you and in front of people would have absolutely scared me to death. And so what I've had to do is go into my brain and say, John, it's going to be okay. You just open your mouth and it'll be fine. And I actually cured my fear of flying through doing that. So I love to see places. And I have always been petrified of flying, but I always said it would never stop me. But the pain of the week lead up to a flight, I'd be thinking it, I'd be over processing it, I'd be thinking about all the consequences in the airport. I'm a nervous wreck getting on the plane. Oh my goodness, why are you putting yourself through this? And then the whole journey, like a white knuckle ride through the air. And then the relief when I get onto the other end, but then dreading the return. The holiday was just spent thinking about
ruined by it. Yeah.
Could I get a boat? Maybe I hire a bike and cycle 2,000 miles or whatever. So what I did was I went into my brain and I said, look, this is stupid, John. You've got to sort this out. And I went in there and I just told my brain that a plane was a very safe, comfortable place. I imagined this comfortable armchair, warm, comfortable armchair that was safe, and that the pilots knew what they were doing. And now I get on a plane and I never even think about it. So something happened. And so I do use that for other things in my life as well. I find it very, very useful. But juggling is sort of part of that as well. No one taught me to juggle. I could just juggle. I just picked up the fruit from my mum's fruit bowl. I cost her a fortune in bruised apples and squashed oranges. But I just knew I could do it, and for me, when I'm juggling, you can't think about anything else. You have to think about the process. But it's a little bit like driving. I don't know if you've ever driven somewhere and you think, I don't remember that. Actually, the process
Many
of driving.
times.
Probably quite dangerous, but it happens, doesn't it? Because I think there's this instinctive process that you go through. And juggling is just the same for me. And I think it could be for other people too. Everyone can juggle. There's no two ways about that. And some people might be able to instinctively do it like I did, or you might have to learn the process. But actually then when you can do it, this holistic pattern, and your brain not able to think about anything else, is actually very therapeutic, and there's a release within it as well. So that's been quite a powerful thing for me. I love juggling. Yeah, I would recommend anyone to.
It's something. It
Yeah,
must be. Yeah. It
go
must be
on.
something about the kinesthetic approach, isn't it? That you are using your hands while processing the pattern of them, to be able to keep them in the air. So there is a book that anybody who would like to try this technique could purchase and learn juggling in how many minutes?
15 minutes. Learn juggling in 15 minutes. So
Wow.
to earn extra money when I was at uni, I used to just put a blanket down on the ground and with some juggling equipment, say to people, look, learn to juggle in 50 minutes for donations, and that's how I earned a little bit of extra money. But I found that I could teach people in 15 minutes the fundamentals of how to juggle. So I thought, I would love people to be able to do that. You don't need, if you've got some juggling balls, great. I wouldn't recommend going straight for the knives, but fruit. Tennis balls are okay, but when you drop them, they tend to bounce all over the place. But give it a go. Give it a go. It's great fun, and if you can, once you get your brain into that zone, wow, it's brilliant. Yeah, 15 minutes.
Amazing. Yeah. I need to try it. I really need to try. Well, we are coming to the end of our hour together, which yes, definitely. This is what I wanted to say. Yeah, I don't think that I can exhaust topics to chat about with you ever. So definitely we will probably meet again and chat about different topics. But I would like to end up always on a positive. And if there's someone right now, somewhere there, in a very low and at the bottom, due to their dyslexia and the lack of self-worth and lack of confidence, what is the message you would like to pass to them?
I would like to reach out and say that being you is okay. It's okay to be you, and celebrate you as you. You are worthy, and you have something very valuable to offer this world, in the fact that you are just you, and you might feel different. You've listened to me for an hour or whatever, all the crazy things that I do. I've always been different, and let's celebrate those differences, because you are worthy, and just try and find that seed, and you can create the choices to make changes. It's there. Yeah. I promise you, it's there. Don't feel
and
alone.
If you are there, please read John's book. Yeah, you are certainly not alone in your struggles, whatever they might be. And
yeah, sorry, I had a bit of a glitch there, but if I'd be delighted if people read the book, and if it was some help to someone, then brilliant. And I'd love to hear people's feedback as well, people's experiences of dyslexia associated mental health or anything else, because the more we can talk about it, and the more we can share ideas, and the more we can support each other, then that's got to be a good thing.
Indeed. We are on this planet together, and we need people around us, as we are animals in the chain of nature, and most of animals live in a herd. Therefore, you need to find people to be surrounded by. And I do recommend reading John's book, because you don't need to have dyslexia to be attracted to it. It's a story about survival, about resilience, and about magic that found John, and changed his life, because I think that, those books and the next one that is coming, that I'm so impatient about, I believe that they pass a huge message and evidence that you can achieve whatever you want, despite despite all the odds that you may be facing and all the struggles. So please do visit Amazon. John's book is on Amazon. And just a reminder for all fans of Mental Health Warriors that on Monday there is a show with Human GPS Warrior at 11, I think. So please tune in. And few comments that Karen, for example, put, that it has been a great interview, very inspiring. Thank you, John. And I think so. Yeah, you are an inspiring person. And please write. If you need to wake up at 3 a.m., fine. I could even make you a cuppa for the deal that you keep writing.
Well, I'll have the easel out ready for you as well. Thank you. Thank you for everyone for tuning in.
Okay.
It's been great chatting to you. One thing I'd like to say is that quite a lot of the dyslexic community asked me about the audio book. Because sometimes reading a whole book, as I know, is not an easy thing, and so the book is out in audiobook as well, so it should be accessible to everyone, hopefully.
Amazing. Yes, that's a great, and good point, isn't it? That some people may benefit from audiobook, indeed. So there is no excuse then, even if you are severely dyslexic and don't perceive yourself as reading a whole book, you can listen to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us, and thank you to everyone who watched live or will be watching the replay. Please tune in 2 weeks' time for another episode of Art My Medicine. And I will say to all of you, have a lovely day and see you then.